Hi guys. Hey, the last 2 weeks have been quite interesting, and I just want to tell you about. First of all, 2 weeks ago, I went on a cruise with my wife around Iceland, and it was really a great cruise. And I auditioned, and they told me I got accepted to do a comedy gig on a boat. So I called up one of my daughters, Samantha, to tell her the news, and she said, "Dad, do me a favor. When you do your gig, on the boat, do not open up with any of those dumb Titanic jokes." I said, "Don't worry, Samantha, I just wanted to break the ice, so to speak." She said, "No, Dad, I'm not kidding. Those Titanic jokes are old and outdated. Don't do it." And I go, "Okay, Sam, I agree. That ship has sailed." But it did give me an idea. You know, the cruise lines offer all these crazy packages that if you have enough money, you can get some cool stuff. So I came up with this one, the Leonardo DiCaprio package. And this package, you get your own lifeboat, own private lifeboat with sushi and Kate Winslet. Now, she's there only for emergency, in case you need to throw someone overboard. But it's a good idea, I think. Now, the director of entertainment on the cruise came up to me a couple days into the cruise and said, "Sorry, the home office in Florida doesn't want someone to do a comedy gig who they don't know. I'm really sorry because you were really good in the audition, but you'll bounce back. You'll have a happy ending to this." I looked at him and go, "Thanks, but I had a happy ending in the spa just this afternoon." And I'm here all week. Well, that was a mistake. Number one, I was only kidding. But number two, he then proceeded to tell me that his girlfriend was a masseuse in the spa. "Well, who gave you that happy ending?" "William." He seemed happy with that and figured that my wife was a trophy wife and that, he felt free to hit on her the rest of the cruise, but that was okay. Now, the food on this ship was fantastic. They came, with COVID being sort of in the limelight, gone, we had buffets again. And buffets are really unbelievable. But it gave me the chance to test something out. A patient of mine, a WW2 vet, was planting the flag on the top of Iwo Jima, Mount Suribachi, famous guy. And he said God spoke to him and said, "If you make it back, Benny, I'm going to tell you a couple secrets of life." So he made it back, and Benny told me one of the things God told him was that if you go to the buffet table and stack your plate with all sorts of food, but then eat it on the way back to the table, those don't count as calories. Huh? You're sort of good to go there. And I said, "Well, I'm a professional. I better test this out." And so one night at dinner, I stacked my plate with chicken and pork chops and fish and 10 bundt cakes. They were stacked up. And so as I go back to my table, I was John Belushi from Animal House, Bluto. I was just pouring this stuff in my mouth, and all the other guests were watching in disgust. And my wife pretended not to even know me, especially when a piece of bluefin tuna flew off my plate and landed on the blue hair of a grandma, thus giving her color coordination. And later my wife said, "Well, my husband has a tapeworm, and this was doctor's orders. You had to just feed the tapeworm to get going." So when we finished the cruise, we had one day in Reykjavik, and they told us we needed to go to this hot dog stand that was very famous for their special hot dog made of beef and lamb, I think some puffin bird, I'm not sure. But I didn't think it tasted good, but I didn't want to be rude, so I just said, "Do you have any mustard for this stuff?" But right next door, this wiener stand was the Icelandic Phallologic Museum. Phallologic means phallus, which is a dick museum. Now, this is not a joke, because it's not funny, because if this was a joke, it'd be a dick joke, and you're not supposed to tell dick jokes. I'm just reporting what happened. The Icelandic people really take their penises, or shaped penises, very seriously. But it worried me a little bit that right next to the Wiener Museum was this wiener stand. And the wieners not only tasted bad, I mentioned, but I gagged on it. Now, I will tell you this, my wife did not. that bothered me a little bit. But she said, "Oh, this isn't bad." And she said, "Well, I want to go next door, Alan, to the Phallus Palace." I said, "I don't know, it costs $25 a person." And when I grew up in Detroit, $25 you could see a live penis. It wasn't a big issue. And she said, "Let's go." I said, "No, I don't think you need to go to see all these penises." She says, "Yes, I do." And if you don't fork over that $25, buddy, your own penis is going to be sitting in its display in a jar of formaldehyde by evening's end, which made an impression on me because in Iceland the evenings are very short. So this museum was crazy. They had penises from every species, from a fly to an 8-pound ding-dong, a blue whale. It made me nervous, to be honest with you. I really wasn't comfortable. And the gift shop was even worse. I mean, the stuff you could buy in the gift shop, you couldn't even fit in a carry-on bag. So I went out and I said, "Honey, I'll wait for you." "Let's just be 10 minutes, okay, dear?" "Okay." 3 hours later, she shows up. Now, that was also 3 hours of not nagging me. And she was pretty hot when she came out of that thing, I'll tell you. So we went home that night and had quite a night. She played whale mating calls and jungle calls, and it was quite something. So I was so happy. The next morning before we left, I went back to that museum and I brought a sweatshirt. I honestly got it. And on the sweatshirt it said, "I didn't know dick until I went to Reykjavik." So I got home last week, feeling great. Everything was good. Life was beautiful. In the morning I got back. I went out for a swim, and then I'm driving my car, Mercedes-Benz, down the I-5, and I dozed off for a second. And my car veered off the highway near Balboa and smacked into a tree at 70 miles an hour. People who witnessed the accident or saw pictures later said, "I should have been dead by a mile." I mean, you take a Mercedes and you suddenly turn it into a squashed VW bug, and that's how it looked. So I'm on the ground, and two people didn't remember it much, but they pulled me out of the car. They said, "We got to get you out of here. There's a gas leak. Gasoline's leaking." And I didn't know what had happened. I go, "I just filled my tank, $6 a gallon. Do so." "Well, if it blows, we're going to blow up." But they said, look at," and they pulled me out and they said, "You see all those pieces of car all over the highway?" I said, "Yeah, how many vehicles were involved?" "Just yours." "And you see that engine 3 lanes over? That's your engine." And I said, "What about all those people? Why aren't they coming over to see me like you?" I said, "They think you're dead." So it was sort of a crazy time. And people asked me, this just happened a week ago, "Well, what did you think when you were about to, did you think you were going to die?" Everybody else did. And I said, I didn't remember it crashed, a big thump. And then I'm in the air rolling around, and this honest country, I talked to God, which isn't the first time. Some people have a connection. I'm one of those people. I said, and he talked back, but I don't remember that part. So I said just 2 words, I promise. I said, "Not today." But I didn't say it like a question mark. I said forcibly, "Not today." And my Jewish God spoke forcibly back, perhaps, and said, "Why not today?" And he had a sort of point. I wouldn't have had to pay for car repairs, My wife would have been stuck with all the funeral costs. But I did not want it on my tombstone say that this man lived a life where he tried to leave a minimum carbon imprint, but yet on his death fucked up a big tree. And after I got out of the hospital, we went back and found that tree. We wanted to do a root cause analysis, so to speak, if you get that one. But back to God and talking to him. So I did really talk to him, and he said something back to me, but I don't remember what, and I can't make it up. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to just to get a laugh. I'm not going to tell you what God might have said, because if I don't know, the consequences might be less than heavenly. I mean, I'd be better off telling a dick joke than making up something God said. But I know from another near-death experience that you could get a whole conversation, 30 minutes worth, in about a half a second. That's how it works. So he told me stuff, but I don't think he wanted me to remember, or at least not remember so I wouldn't tell you guys. He might have told me what the winning lottery numbers are next week. Ask me later. Or he might have told me if the Padres were going to the World Series. The answer is yes. And he might have told me whether Donald Trump's going to jail. That's a no-brainer. So I, my comedy mentor, Tony Calabrese back there, Rhea Herman, have always said, if you want to be a comedian, you have to live and breathe comedy. I did it. I am laying on the side of the road, waiting for the ambulance to come and get me. And on the right side, I think I crushed my liver so I couldn't even move it. But I didn't think about that. I didn't think about living and dying. I didn't even think about my wife and kids or Fernando Tatis Jr. I thought of punchlines about being punched by a tree. Sort of crazy. So then, I don't remember, I was unconscious in the ambulance ride, and we ended up at Scripps Memorial Trauma Unit. And let me tell you, this was a real Wizard of Oz moment. You remember in the Wizard of Oz, Dorothy comes back to Kansas, and everybody's there, The red slippers, that's an accident. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like the National Comedy Theater, yay. But there I was, I woke up, and it was like all my friends from the past were there in masks. And the first one pulled his down and said, Dr. Maisel, it's Tim. Remember me? You taught me EKGs. You did a great job, and yours is normal, by the way. The second guy pulled down his mask, the ER doc said, hey, it's John. Dr. Maisel, remember I worked in your lab for 2 years. It's great you're alive. The third doc was botching an IV insertion in my arm, and he sheepishly pulled down his mask and said, Dr. Maisel, I don't know if you remember me, I'm Alex. You flunked me out of the ICU. Uh-oh. Well, I was going to flunk him an IV insertion as well, because he did a pretty bad job. But you can't have a Wizard of Oz moment unless you have NTM, right? Here comes my wife in the room. She asked the doctors if she could have a private moment with me. So they stepped away, and she came up, and she leaned over me and put a kiss on my forehead. Tears from her eyes were dripping on my cheek. And she said, what the fuck did you do to that car? Well, anyways, I could have been dead. I didn't have any spinal injuries, maybe a little brain damage, but not much more than the average comedian has. So I think I was okay there. And really, while I'm coughing, I have all fractured ribs on this side, and it hurts. The things that make it hurt are coughing and sneezing. Well, I didn't think that was going to be an issue. But then in the ER, they had insult to injury. They said I tested positive for COVID. Okay, don't worry, I'm negative now. You don't have to worry. But the second thing that can make you laugh, make the ribs hurt, is if you laugh. I figured, look, I'm not going to laugh. I like telling jokes, but I don't laugh at my own jokes. But my freaking wife suddenly developed a sense of humor. So people would come home and visit. She started telling jokes. Everybody's laughing. I'm just screaming in pain. A little sadist, huh? In fact, one night I went to sleep and I got up. She was downstairs on the computer. I looked over her shoulder. She was studying comedy. So be it. But anyways, there is a good life lesson here. After near-death experience, humor helps you heal. And so for that, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that you came here to also help me heal. So thank you.